September 12, 1942, Guadalcanal. The humid night presses down like a blanket soaked in heat and fear. Clouds swallow the moon, leaving the ridge south of Henderson Field barely outlined against the black sky. This ridge, later called Edson's Ridge, is little more than a stretch of uneven ground, tangled brush, and foxholes scraped into clay. It is here that 800 U.S. Marines wait in an uneasy silence. Lieutenant Colonel Merritt Red Mike Edson surveys the darkness below. Sweat rolls down his face, not just from the humidity, but from the weight of the intelligence report delivered only hours earlier. 2,500 Japanese troops are converging on the ridge from multiple directions. Elite troops, experienced jungle fighters, men trained to break enemies with relentless night assaults. Edson knows exactly what this means. They're not coming to probe the line, they're coming to crush it. And he also knows the brutal truth. His Marines are exhausted, hungry, riddled with malaria, and short on ammunition. Many had fought or patrolled non-stop for days. Some haven't slept in nearly 48 hours. Henderson Field, their lifeline, lies just a short distance away. If they lose this ridge, the Japanese will overrun the airfield within hours. And if Henderson falls, the entire American foothold on Guadalcanal collapses. Supplies stop, reinforcements stop. The Navy loses the ability to support them. The entire Pacific campaign could swing the other way. But Edson refuses to retreat. He calmly gathers his officers and tells them the plan. They hold the ridge, every inch of it, no matter what hits them. The men quietly accept their fate. No one complains, no one suggests falling back. They tighten helmet straps, check rifles, pray. They know the Japanese will come in the dark. They know they will come screaming, and they know that defending this patch of ground might mean dying on it. But still, not a single Marine moves to leave. They wait, listening, breathing, knowing the night is about to explode. As night thickens, nervous fingers tighten around rifle stocks. The jungle below grows restless, faint footsteps, rustling leaves, whispered commands in Japanese drifting through the trees. The Marines strain to see anything in the darkness, knowing full well they won't see the enemy until they're on top of them. Then, at 9:40 p.m., the first cracks of gunfire erupt. A burst of automatic fire lights up the lower slope. Mortar rounds whistle overhead, exploding against the ridge in violent flashes of orange. The Japanese have begun their assault, and they do it with terrifying precision. Within seconds, the entire ridgeline is engulfed in a storm of gunfire that shreds foliage, dirt, and whatever unlucky Marine happens to be exposed. But this is only the beginning. Moments later, Edson's worst fear becomes real. The Japanese are not attacking from one direction, they are attacking from every direction. Front, left flank, right flank, rear. Marines shout warnings, pivoting machine guns and rifles as muzzle flashes flicker all around them. The Japanese advance in small squads, then platoons, then entire companies, screaming as they charge uphill. Grenades roll into foxholes. Mortar fire pounds the ridge with sickening accuracy. The Marines are nearly swallowed whole. Edson races down the line, bullets snapping past him. He shouts orders, pulls men back into tighter formations, and reorganizes the collapsing front. He knows the ridge is too long to defend with even coverage, so he begins to contract the line, pulling Marines back toward the middle, where their fire can overlap. It looks like a retreat. It isn't. It's a trap taking shape. Each time the Japanese sense the line shifting, they push harder, believing the Marines are breaking. They rush forward in greater numbers, tightening themselves into a single funnel, exactly what Edson needs. But his men are stretched to the limit. They fight with rifles hot to the touch, with bayonets slick with sweat, with grenades and fists when ammunition runs low. The jungle becomes a nightmare of shadows leaping out of the trees. Still they hold, because losing the ridge means losing everything. Shortly after midnight, the Japanese reorganize for their biggest charge yet. They regroup in the jungle, gathering hundreds of troops, ready to sweep up the ridge and crush the Marines once and for all. Their officers shout orders, their troops fix bayonets and prepare to swarm the hillside in one unstoppable wave. What they don't see, what they cannot possibly know, is that Edson has predicted the exact route they'll take. Because of the shape of the ridge and the Marines' earlier withdrawal, The Japanese are now unintentionally funneling themselves into a single narrow approach, the only terrain left that isn't covered by cliffs or impassable brush. A perfect kill zone. At 1:30 a.m., the Japanese surge forward. Hundreds crash through the jungle, screaming in unison, their charges illuminated only by muzzle flashes and tracers. They slam headfirst into the narrow corridor leading up the ridge, and the Marines unleash everything they have. Machine guns roar in long, unbroken bursts, cutting down entire ranks. Mortars arc overhead and explode among the advancing troops, ripping through formations. Riflemen fire until their barrels glow red, then swap weapons with wounded comrades and keep shooting. Grenades roll down the slope and detonate in clusters, tearing apart squads by the dozen. One Marine later said, "You couldn't tell where the ground ended and the bodies began." Still, the Japanese don't stop. They charge again, and again, and again. Each wave slams into the same narrow path, and each wave is torn apart by the concentrated fire of the Marines who refuse to give up the ridge. The screams of wounded men echo through the trees. Smoke from burning brush mixes with dust and metal. By 3 a.m., the ridge resembles a scene from hell, a landscape of churned earth, mangled trees, and the fallen of two armies tangled together. The Japanese prepare one final push, gathering every soldier still able to stand. Edson knows it is coming. He knows it will be massive, and he knows if it breaks his line, the airfield will fall. He tells his Marines the truth. This is it. They'll hit us with everything they have left. Then the night goes quiet. Too quiet. Moments later, the last Japanese assault begins. The final assault begins just before dawn, when the sky is a dark, bruised grey. The Japanese erupt from the jungle all at once, hundreds charging in a screaming mass, firing wildly, hurling grenades, and crashing straight into the Marine line. The fighting becomes hand-to-hand almost instantly. Marines fire point-blank, then switch to bayonets when their rifles jam. Some fight with knives, others with entrenching tools. Men grapple in the dirt, rolling among roots and debris as gunfire cracks inches above them. It is chaos, the purest, most desperate form of combat. But in the middle of the madness, something unexpected happens. The Japanese commander collapses, shot in the opening minutes of the charge. For a split second, the entire Japanese force hesitates, a subtle stutter in their momentum. Edson sees it instantly. He doesn't wait. He orders every man with a working weapon to fire, every remaining mortar to launch, every machine gun to run until it jams. The Marines unleash a wall of fire so intense that the final Japanese push disintegrates in minutes. Survivors scatter into the jungle, dragging wounded comrades, stumbling back down the slope in defeat. By sunrise, the ridge is still in American hands, and the cost for the attackers is staggering. Over 2,500 Japanese troops were committed to the attack. Nearly the entire force was killed, wounded, or rendered incapable of fighting. The Marines, 800 men who should have been overrun, surrounded, and annihilated, stood their ground and changed the entire direction of the Pacific War. Military historians call it one of the most heroic defensive stands in Marine Corps history. But the men who survived always said something simple. We weren't heroes. We just weren't going to let them take that ridge.